Hello and welcome to everyone today. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter. Payroll reports. We're talking about payroll reports in the new current version of Church Windows, version 24, as everybody can see here. But it should be pretty quick. Please enter any questions you have in the chat portion of the Demio control panel. Please keep the questions on topic, meaning about our payroll reports. So there we are. So let's go ahead and dive in. There's no handout for today's event, no printed material. I do advise that if you're on version 24 for Church Windows and Payroll, that maybe look in your help files. So as we go into Payroll, I'm quite sure that if I go in here and I bring up help, and I believe under our topic of payroll here, let's do allow blocked content. And right up here under payroll, we notice right here, payroll reports. So you see here on the upper right, payroll reports, then we got payee reports, pay reports, tax reports, check reports, print preview. So you got lots of information at your fingertips right there in the payroll help files or in the Church Windows help files as well, okay? All right, so first thing, we are only talking about Church Windows payroll reports only. We are not spending any time covering any reports under tax reports and tax forms whatsoever, okay? So we're not going to be doing anything under Atrix, nothing to do with Atrix today. This is all under payroll reports in the payroll software, nothing to do with Atrix. I just wanted to make that clear right off the bat. We've got already a fair amount of information out on the Resource Center page and in Church Windows on Atrix and the tax reporting itself. We're now talking about internal Church Windows reports, okay? I like to sort of introduce this now from the standpoint of reporting in how they are now in payroll in comparison to other portions of the software. So what the term I typically use is conventions. So the similar type reporting conventions that we see in membership, donations, and accounting are also now available in payroll, okay? So if we go to something like reports, pay reports, and say pay period deductions report, what I mean by conventions are that we have the tabs across the top of our report, options page. So right here, we've got select payees and date range, columns, fonts and lines. We also may see, as we're going to look at on some other reports, what's the other one? Group and sort options on those, okay? So again, all of these reporting conventions, meaning the same types of functionality, are everywhere in Church Windows in all four modules of the software now, okay? What's on those columns may be a little different. Like certainly based on different reports, you're going to see different information options on these typically select payees, maybe date ranges. You're going to see different columns available for the reports, different group and sort options, but you have the ability to be able to manipulate which columns we see on the report by, rotating between available columns and visible columns. Visible columns, of course, being the columns that we are asking to see on the report or we want to see on the report. Available columns being those that are not currently being shown, okay? Also, in what order those appear. So you've got the arrows facing left and right here between those two lists. And then over on the far right here, you see these up and down arrows over here where we can go, oh, I want my net pay to appear further up the list. I can highlight that and push those columns up into an order where I want them to be. Maybe I don't want net pay to appear at the bottom. I want it to appear closer to my gross pay in this case, okay? So again, these are all the same reporting options and conventions that we have everywhere in the software. And I'm very pleased to say that we have those now in payroll as well, okay? Again, under pay period deductions report, I have select payees date ranges, but maybe under something different. Let me see if I can find another one, like say my taxable earnings detail report. Nope, that's not the one I'm looking for. Sorry, I'm looking for something else here. Yeah, so right here under our accounting transfer audit report, we've got options, columns, fonts, but we also have one called group and sort. And by default, in parentheses, it says that the current sort field 1 option is payee name, but we also have some other options for how that is sorted as well. In this case, either check number or sequence number and or transaction number, okay? I've kind of talked about this over the course of each one of over the past years about this in terms of just telling you that I'm giving you permission to be able to go in and explore this, folks, okay? There's so much you can do with what columns do you want to see, what order do you want to see those in. You have to decide that, okay? Church Windows doesn't decide what you want to see, okay? And I'm going to come back and talk about a little more about what's on these, say, options tabs or columns tabs more, because you're going to see here in a minute that we've got some options here that offer just ridiculous amounts of capability of information that you can add to some of these reports based on the information that's entered in the payroll software now, or in the payroll module, okay? I also like to remind older users of the software, folks who have come from the old payroll module, that the old payroll reports are also in the new payroll, just with different flexibility, with more options and flexibility. So we've already looked at under pay report, reports export, pay reports. You've also got the reports, folks, here in the middle, the little reports printer icon right here. This is where you've got a multiple. You can choose to set up custom groupings of reports. If you print the same reports every month, you can come in here and create some saved report groups if you wish. But all of these here are your, again, payroll reports. None of these are your tax reports, okay? So you can literally create a custom group of reports that you run the same reports every month if you want, or every pay period, okay? And again, you've got that same option in accounting too, all right, and in, I believe, donations as well, all right. If we go back up to pay reports, pay reports and payroll, the old payroll were also pay period earnings, which included our taxable earnings and our pay type earnings reports, okay. Pay period deductions report, all right. I like to talk about the pay period deductions report because in the old payroll, we used to be able to say, hey, we can run the 941 form to tell us our tax deposit for the period, or we can run the pay period deductions report. But really now the best and easiest way to be able to determine our 941 tax amount deposit total is to run the pay period deductions report. Why? Because the generation of the tax reports is a lot more complex, and it takes longer and a lot more time consuming to get there, when simply if we go, okay, we want our tax deposits, say your deposit schedule is, say, monthly, right here I put in January 1 through January 31st. I'm just entering an arbitrary date range, folks, that's supported by my data. I leave it as all my employees. I can include archived, payees, or terminated, but that is, if you had anybody that was either terminated or archived, they most likely wouldn't have any pay in this period. You can include them though. But if you click print, it will now show me down the left-hand side, just like it did in the prior payroll software, should say exactly what my 941 deposit is. Yep, right down here, 941 deposit. If yours is semi-weekly, then you would run it for January 1 through the 15th, and then the 16th through the final day of the month, or what have you. Or if you're a quarterly depositor, you would run it for the whole quarter. But this is virtually the same exact report it was in the old payroll software, okay? All of these reports here, accounting transfer audit report, had that in accounting, had that in the old payroll as well. Also our history reports. This is one of the reports, if I'm not mistaken, that I think I wanted to show you here, that no, this wasn't it. It was one of the other detail reports. Under our employee contractor reports, we've added these detail reports for things like allowances, deductions, local taxes, miscellaneous taxes. One of the things that I learned in preparing for this event today is these detail reports, allowances, deductions, local taxes, and miscellaneous, are the same exact reports that we would get right here under employee contractor for employee total allowances, employee total deductions, total miscellaneous taxes, and employee total local taxes, okay? They're the same reports. They're just in different places. What that essentially means is you can have two different layouts depending on for each one of these reports, depending on what you want to include or see, okay? So if I go here, say to reports detail, and I say do my deductions reports, and I go here, again, I would enter the date range that I'm wanting. I want to choose who I want to be able to produce them for. But look at here on the left-hand side, all of the available fields that I have to be able to include on this report. Phone numbers, email. Again, this is all gathered from the employee file. Name fields, address information, alternate address information, payroll data. Oh my word, look at all of this information that we can include in just this deduction detail report. Pay totals under this, direct deposit fields that we can include. Folks, you need to dive in and determine and play and find out what you're wanting on your reports. You also have to understand and be aware that none of this stuff is set in stone. So if this week you want, certain information on the report this week, but you want something else different on the same report next week, you can always come into the columns and change that, any of these columns, and change that, okay? We don't have the ability to save different report layouts within the same report at this time, but I think that's something that our developers do continue to look at all the time, and that may be something we're going to be adding in a future version. Right now it doesn't exist, but you can always come in and change any of these report layouts. It will remember systematically your most recent selection for columns and the order once you choose them and click print. That is, of course, associated with your particular logon to the computer. So when you make your column selections and click print, you log on as you, it's going to remember those. Other users won't see your layouts. We do also have the option down here in the bottom left, everyone. You should see the reset to default columns. This was added because we've added so many more options for customizing these payroll reports and the amount of information that you can add to them. But one of the things that I really want to point out here is, and this is new in the new payroll, is notice here for most of these reports, we've got this new option down here called Detail Report Column Options. All right. So when I click on that for like my deductions detail, I do have description, amount, and total, but notice it's not including things like how often is that deduction being deducted, or what is the percentage if there is one? What is the end date or the start date of it? Is there an accounting account that I want to see? Okay, so you have more options for what you can see on these reports than ever before. So if I just leave it as is and click next or print, it shows, hey, all my employees, here's their description, the total, the grand total for them, only because I've included that. But if I now go back over to my detail report column options and I go, all right, I want to see frequency and I want to see percent and my accounting account. And I now click OK and click print. Notice right there, look at all this more information that I can include, but only because that has to do with the detail sections of these individual deductions that I have set up. Okay. Again, I can just go right back into the detail report column options and omit. I don't want the accounting account. Click OK. But the total here does allow us to bring in the grand total that otherwise will not print on this report. Okay. It's been a pretty common support call here. One of the other things about these detail reports is it does display at the very bottom a grand total for all your deductions or local taxes or miscellaneous right here at the very bottom on the last page of the report. Okay, so this is where you're going to come in to see your totals for all of your, say, taxes per se, okay, whether they're miscellaneous or local or your deductions, and it will show them. This happens to be the deductions report. My data supports this. But if I go into, say, my, say, reports under employee contractor reports, and let's say local taxes, okay, again, going to columns, all these available fields, I go to the account detail. I've got all of these other things I can add to it. And again, they're there. And now when I click print, it will bring up, again, each individual local tax, and it'll bring up a grand total. Oh, it should have brought that in. I'm sorry, folks. It should have. Did I add that? Oh, is it under there yet? Did I add it? It is under a totals added. I'm not sure why that's not displaying that, folks. Local taxes, it should be. Let me go to the other one. And maybe that's the difference on that. Give me a second. Columns, local taxes, other totals there. It should be. So maybe that's the difference on this. Yeah. So the detail report does bring in the grand totals that other does not. So again, you're going to probably want to use those detail reports for the grand totals on those, not those employee individual reports. That's, I think, the difference on those, but they're virtually the same, not exactly the same. More reporting options than ever before, folks. That's one of the things I want to make clear. And you want to play with this. Again, if I go, I want to reset to default columns, I simply click that and click print, and it goes back to the defaults that we would set up, which would be just, the basic information per employee. Okay. Let's see here. Let me look at my list here and see if there's anything that I've missed here. And exporting, of course. For folks, you still have the same reporting conventions you do elsewhere with about another minute or two left. You have the ability to use the export down here, and you can either choose the export document with all of our various options defaulting to PDF, of course, or send via email, again, with all those same file type options here in the list. Or, of course, you may export that directly from the preview of the report itself. So at the top here, you also have the export option or the email with the same options. And I also like to point out the I for the information, which is basically the information that summarizes at the report. We are bringing in more information on this, folks, in the SR3, by the way. We're going to be bringing in things like a total count for the employees that are brought in on the report here, or contractors, as the case may be. Okay. So we are improving and enhancing this. And I like to remind folks that, we've released this payroll less than 6 months ago. It's continuing to grow and evolve, and I'm sure the reports are going to continue to grow and evolve too over the course of the next 6 to 12 months as well. So stay tuned for more changes to some of these reports and reporting options. And so I'm going to leave that for where we are here today, folks. But again, just let us know if you have any questions or problems with any of it, or if you're seen totals or something that are inconsistent and you're unsure about that, just reach out to us. But this is where I'm going to leave this for today.